This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to mention that this conference is now going to be recorded. Thank you, Isabel. And so yeah, we're going to be doing a poll today. We have a number of questions. Hopefully we can solve those technical issues so that it works seamlessly. But if you're on the computer, you can just go to the website and then the questions will come up and allow you to select the answers to the question as it comes in. If you're calling in, you can respond to the survey questions through text message. Katie Smith, our host from DEO today, will remind us all how to do it right before we start out. And then so just a couple of things to remember about using GoToMeeting. You can't use two devices at the same time or it might cause some feedback through the audio. And sometimes there's a lag for the slides to load. So especially during the survey, just be patient if it takes a second before you go ahead and put in your other answer. And then if you speak during the conference today, which we encourage you to do so, we ask that you just please identify yourself by name and industry or organization, because I'll be taking notes throughout the conversation so that we can capture all the ideas and all the ideas that flow today, because DEO will be using this conversation to help improve broadband throughout the state. And lastly, if you want to comment and you don't necessarily want to speak up right then, you can go ahead and just use the chat box.
So good morning again, everyone. This is Isabel Cosio Carballo with the South Florida Regional Planning Council. On behalf of the Florida Office of Broadband at the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, thank you so much for taking time to join us this morning to share your insights and expertise on broadband issues. As you know, this is a very important topic for the state of Florida. And Mark has gone through most of the guidance on how to participate, and I understand, I believe that the poll might be fixed now, so we're going to get ready to get started. And with that, I'd like to introduce Katie Smith, who's Director of the Office of Community Partnerships with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. And Katie, thank you again for the opportunity to help with this workshop, and we're very excited to see what we're going to get. And welcome, friends. I know everyone's very busy, so thank you so much for joining us from around the region.
Thank you, Isabel. So welcome and thank you for participating in the Florida Broadband Workshop today. These workshops are being hosted by the Department of Economic Opportunity in partnership with the Florida Regional Planning Councils. As Isabel said, I am Katie Smith, and I'm the Director for the Office of Community Partnerships and the Florida Office of Broadband at DEO. I'll be your host today along with my colleague, Sean Lewis, a Community Program Manager in the Office of Community Partnerships at DEO. And I want to thank our partners and friends at the South Florida Regional Planning Council for facilitating the workshop today and assisting DEO with invitations, technical assistance during the workshop, collecting information and comments to be included in the Florida Strategic Plan for Broadband. These comments that you share with us today are important for expanding broadband internet access in your region. Again, I'm Katie Smith, and I've been with DEO for the last 6 years. I have worked in business development with large companies relocating and expanding in Florida, and I've worked in economic development with small and rural communities. I began working to establish the Office of Broadband a little less than a year ago. Today, we're going to begin the conversation on broadband, focusing on accessibility and what the current status of broadband internet is in your region for your industry sector. And I'm looking forward to hearing your discussion and comments today on how you define broadband expansion. Next slide, please. During the 2020 legislative session, House Bill 969 established the Office of Broadband at DEO to increase the availability and effectiveness of broadband internet throughout the state, especially in small and rural communities. The bill also authorized DEO to access federal grant dollars and assist communities with expansion of broadband services. The office is currently staffed by existing resources in the Office of Community Partnerships at DEO, and the Office of Broadband has been very fortunate to have the support and commitment of fantastic partner organizations such as the Florida Regional Councils Association, the Florida Association of Counties, the Small Counties Coalition, the Florida Internet and Television, state agencies such as the Department of Transportation, Department of Health, Department of Education, and so many, many more. Next slide, please. So per Section 364.0135 in the Florida statutes, the office has been provided 4 main directives. These include, as you can see, creating a strategic plan to increase the use of broadband internet service in Florida, to build and facilitate local technology planning teams with community leaders in education, healthcare, business, tourism, agriculture, and so many more. To encourage the public use of internet service through broadband grant programs, and to monitor, participate in, and provide input in Federal Communications Commission proceedings. Next slide, please. So to meet these directives, the DEO adopted a phased approach. The first phase is to conduct a feasibility study on the nature of the connectivity gap and why it exists. In 2020, DEO submitted an application to the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration with a request for $3 million to fund the study. We were notified in the fall of 2020 that we were not awarded funding. However, with the help from our partners, the office has requested broadband studies, plans, and projects that are being completed at the regional, county, and community level to assist in identifying the current status of broadband. The second phase of this approach is the strategic plan itself. The office has begun outlining the plan and is looking forward to aggregating the information collected during the workshops and via the DEO website to include in the strategic plan for broadband. The technology planning teams gathered together in the workshops over the next week and previous 2 weeks are from 13 industry sectors and will provide vital information, conversation, and partnership for expanding broadband accessibility. The third phase of our approach is to implement these initiatives that are directed in the strategic plan. So upon completion of that plan, we'll be looking to identify additional resources to assist in that implementation. Next slide, please. The Office of Broadband created a website that houses information on federal and state funding opportunities in broadband. We regularly update the site, include information on these workshops, and will soon, actually now, include a survey link for public input on broadband expansion. You can see that survey link on our website as well as the previously recorded workshops if you choose to go back and view them for information on what was said during previous meetings. One recent development you may have heard about is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund from the FCC. That was $191 million that was awarded to Florida entities. The FCC has provided a summary of that auction by county and the bidders within those counties. You can access the link on our website for more information, but it's important to note that DEO does not have a role in determining who gets what or how the funds can be utilized. Next slide, please. In order to prepare for possible grant funding in the future through DEO, priority will go to projects and proposals highlighting the following. Removing barriers to entry for underserved and unserved areas, projects that encourage local and regional investment, and projects that address the needs of which many of these have been exposed during the pandemic, such as telemedicine, distance learning, and remote working. Finally, the Office of Broadband is continually monitoring broadband development activity and participates in national association discussions on a weekly basis. Next slide, please. You'll also find on the Department and Office of Broadband website a map highlighting internet speeds by census block. The State of Florida Minimum Internet Download Speeds Map uses FCC data, and since January of 2015, the FCC has defined broadband internet as download speeds greater than 25 megabits per second and upload speeds of 3 megabits per second. We chose to present the FCC data a little bit differently, and we chose to highlight that with census blocks with the minimum internet download speeds, meaning 25.3 or less. So and that's because one of our office goals is to focus on underserved and unserved areas. If you can go to the next slide, please. There we go. So this is the map that I was discussing. Please feel free to log on to our website and take a look at the map and the data that is available. It is really interesting, I will say that, but it's important to note that the data is for fixed internet service only. Satellite and mobile data are not included. And we are planning to upload or update the information as soon as the new census information comes out. And we understand that the FCC is also updating their data and how they are mapping so that we will be able to pull a lot of that data and update our map as well. So that will be coming in the next few months. Next slide, please. So our broadband workshops. Today is the 7th broadband workshop being conducted in partnership with the Florida Regional Councils Association. And the 10 regional workshops are hosted by DEO and facilitated by the regional planning councils. All the workshops are to be completed by this Friday, February 12th. And the workshop participants include a variety of industry sectors and leaders, including education, healthcare, local government, and more. And you can also see that listed on our slide here. After the workshops are completed, all of the information and testimonies will be aggregated and presented to the legislature by DEO. So we do encourage you to speak up and be heard. We really want to know what is happening in your industry sector and how you view accessibility and that expansion of accessibility. Next slide, please. All right, so poll everywhere. I'm going to flip it back to the RPC to just make sure that everybody's logged on to the poll everywhere and walk you through the very first question here.
All right, thank you, Katie. And thank you to Brittany, who's logged off now, but she got our technical issues solved for us. And so, so hopefully if you're on the computer, you can just join by logging onto that hyperlink, or if you are on the phone, right now you can text GOLDLEAF 599, that's Gold Leaf 599. And if you text that to the number 22333, you'll be right in the survey. And then every time the question comes up, you'll just be able to respond to that with the particular letter that corresponds to the answer that you'd like to submit. And if you have any questions, feel free to speak up, put them in the chat box. And then we'll also just give you a couple minutes to get your answers in, and then we'll let you know when you have to get that answer in, just so we can move it along. And so we'll go ahead and do a test question just so we are all nice and familiar with it. You can go ahead and pick it, chocolate, vanilla, and sorry, there's no strawberry option, of course, but we'll get it in. You see how it actively just, it takes your questions or your answers and then just populates it right there. And, we'll be able to see the answers in real time. And that's simple enough. And then I'll just pass it on to Katie and she can go ahead and take it from there.
Mark, does it tell you how many people are answering? In other words, it's 50% of everybody? Is that the way that works, or?
Right, of the total.
I know, but can you tell if it's 25 people answering or 35 people answering?
It's not showing up on the screen in real time, but we'll be able to find out later.
Okay, great, thanks.
So here, chocolate is clearly the winner. It's always the winner. But the following 8 questions will help direct the Florida Office of Broadband in understanding regional availability and accessibility of broadband internet service. The questions also assist in the design of state programs and resources for broadband adoption, deployment, expansion, and resiliency. So let's start with the very first question. That is going to be, which sector are you participating from? And we're interested in the industry sector because we want to know who's with us today, and that helps us get a good mix of conversation and an insight. Looks like we have some good participation from the university system. That's great. Thank you so much. Some of the EDOs and local government. That's great. Thank you so much for participating today. Let's flip over to the next question. These first three questions are housekeeping questions really for DEO. We just want to know where your place of business is located, in which county, or where your industry sector is. It's always, again, very helpful. I understand that today we may be speaking to a more urban region versus some of our other regions in the state. But I think it's important to understand, we recognize that there are underserved and unserved areas in urban communities as well. So while I speak to the urban and or the rural and small communities, I understand that there are definitely pockets in urban areas that are just as necessary for this, to have this conversation. So great showing today. Thank you so much. And then let's get to that last housekeeping question is, are you aware of any existing local broadband studies or plans for your area? This helps us identify what's out there and what's already been done. We don't want to repeat if we don't have to. But sometimes there's programs that are already, and projects that are already moving along. And so maybe they're just looking for funding, and maybe we can help with that. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. The first question here. So of the following factors, which is the most important to your community regarding broadband internet accessibility? And this is always really interesting because we have, it really varies for every region. Sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's reliability, sometimes it's provider. So it really varies. I think for the most part, we've seen cost and reliability be the two biggest factors for each region, and it looks like we're not too far off on that as well. Does anyone want to speak to why they chose this factor, or maybe what is leaning them towards choosing this factor? You may have to unmute yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Tony Caspiata. I am the Vice President of Information Technology at Broward College.
Hello.
I guess my question or my comment really is, we have, a number of zip codes that are considered underserved in the Broward County area, and we're really looking as a college to bridge that digital divide. So there's any way that the state could help us penetrate some of those disadvantaged zip codes in Broward County would be certainly helpful, and obviously cost is a big factor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's definitely necessary for our conversation today, and how do we get into those different areas. And I hopefully we'll get a little bit more involved in that a little bit later on. Does anyone else have a comment or a thought?
We really want the context behind the way folks are answering the questions, specifically if there are sector-specific challenges, needs. We really need to know from everyone, from, for example, education, healthcare, agriculture, tourism, all the different sectors, because each one may have things that are specific to them that may be really important, that we want to make sure that we capture in this data. So please speak up.
I hear from a lot of you on a regular basis, so I know that there's some factors here. So let's go to the next question, and that talks about what type of internet technology does your industry sector currently utilize? So are you currently using cellular? Are you currently using wireless, fiber? what is it that your industry sector is using? The next question is what do you want to use for the future? And that's important for us to have both of these answers because we know where we're starting from and what our goal is for the future. So it looks like everybody is using fiber, really? Wow. Okay, here we go. There's some cellular. Does anybody want to speak to that, what they're currently using or any?
Sorry, this is Jack Burge with CenturyLink Lumen. So I responded to fiber. Obviously, we provide a combination of DSL and fiber, but pretty much all of our go forward investment is in fiber. The other thing I wanted to call out, kind of tying in the last question, is as you know, there's legislation pending in the state of Florida for broadband funding. And I'll just say, I on state grants in 22 states. And I'll say that to provide fiber in rural areas, a 50% contribution from the state, many areas is going to be low, and it'll be a challenge to provide fiber. I know we've talked about other technologies, but I just wanted to call that out. You know, I work in North Carolina and Virginia also, and they are more in the area of 70 to 80%, you know, depending upon the area. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate those comments. That's great. And it's good to hear. Does anyone else have any thoughts, any comments? Okay.
Hi, Katie. It's Stacy with T-Mobile. I really appreciate you doing this. These are great and important community conversations. I would just mention that although we're not included in the current mapping, we are building out to rural areas as a result of our merger with Sprint, and we're building out really fast network because of the ability that we have to put some of the spectrum together. And if anybody wants to talk more about that in detail, but that's going to hit all the constituencies, including rural and urban areas, and that we have some really robust distance learning options right now. So we're doing our best to keep the cost low for the consumer and the student.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stacy. So let's go to the next question here. And of these internet technologies, which one would increase the accessibility of internet service for your area? This is a little bit different. Again, I'm hoping that we can this is probably where we get a little bit more of a mix of technologies. I know that's what we've kind of talked about in various other meetings. But I'm interested to see, because I know that, to Jack's point, fiber is expensive. There's one piece of legislation that I've seen that was filed so far. But I'm interested to hear from our industry partners, why would you choose multiple technologies? Why one over another? You guys are a quiet bunch.
Katie, I'll jump in a little bit. Brad Swanson from Florida Internet and Television. Our industry has been participating on the MCORS calls and these calls as well. And when we talk about reaching rural and underserved markets, our industry collectively, along with our friends in the telecom space, we recognize that it's going to take all of the technologies on the table to reach Florida's last 5%. A lot of people don't know, but Florida is a very wired state compared to a lot of our Western friends. 95% of our citizens have access to high-speed broadband, but that last 5% is still a huge number. And the southwestern or southeastern counties, actually just about every county in Florida still has some large rural components, except for probably Pinellas. But even on the far west side of Miami-Dade, they've got it too. So point-to-point wireless, people talk about the low orbiting satellites, and Elon Musk is very eager to get those up. But there's technology now that's reaching some of those rural markets. It's not necessarily provided by the Comcast of the worlds or the Charters of the worlds, but it's going to take everybody.
Agreed. I completely agree with that, Brad. Thank you for that comment. Anyone else? Okay. Maybe our RPC could kind of help guide a little bit more of the conversation. You know a little bit more of your industries in that area, and you also know your region maybe a little bit better than I do. I don't know if you can hear my thunder. It is really loud and rainy today. But Isabel, maybe there of some technology or something that's happening in your region that you could speak to, or
it could be challenges that you're seeing that may have been exposed by the pandemic.
Thank you. I'm going to admit to you that I am not an expert on broadband, which is why we have all the experts on the phone on this meeting. So it's not my area of expertise, but it would be very helpful to hear from our partners on the phone that use broadband, what obstacles they've seen, with respect to expanding accessibility to broadband. I know we have, or what can make things better. I know we have representatives from Broward College, Miami-Dade Public Library System.
So Isabel, to your comment just now, libraries, we had libraries on a previous call, and they were discussing how a lot of their visitors to the libraries were opting not to have broadband or internet access at their home because it was more available at the public library, so they could go and utilize the libraries and then take that, what they would save from having it in their home to using it for the gas or the bus money to get to the library to utilize the access there. Is there maybe someone who could speak to that? Is that what you're seeing in your area here in South Florida?
Well, I do know that the libraries are a very good access point for communities to go in and use. I don't know so much now with the COVID if it's sort of reduced accessibility because of social distancing and other requirements. I see my friend, not to put him on the spot, but I see my friend Daniel, famous from the Greater Marathon Chamber of Commerce. I don't know, Daniel, if there's any unique conditions in Monroe County that you would like to talk to. He's on the phone. Let me see here. Madoki. I don't know. Maybe not on the here.
This is Tony again. I'll jump in here. I think wireless 5G penetration to all these communities around Broward County would be significantly helpful. Certainly at a low price point. So I think the pandemic has really put a lot of people at a disadvantage. You mentioned libraries, right? Our libraries were shut down by the state of Florida for a really long time, and we share our libraries with the counties. So, so the students had, they couldn't get into the libraries. We tried to provide as much wireless internet access around the campuses and open spaces for the students that did come on campus. But then again, at the beginning of the pandemic, we asked everybody to stay away from the campuses. So I really believe that 5G is the answer to penetrate around these counties, whether it's rural or whether they're densely populated. because I certainly see most of the students don't even have laptops, but they certainly have a cell phone, and they can actually participate by cell phone, especially if they had a 5G enabled device. Then obviously the high speed would be extremely helpful. So I actually just think wireless is the future. I don't really think any of these other technologies are going to outlast wireless and be as adopted as wireless will be, because take Comcast. I mean, if Comcast, somebody's going to have to pay Comcast for fixed wireless. I'm sorry, for fixed internet access in their house, when we know everybody's mobile nowadays. You're not just staying in your house, and let's get past COVID. You're not staying in your house. You always want to be connected. So having an internet connection from a Comcast or an AT&T or even a satellite provider, I just don't think is the future. I really do think wireless is.
Yes, Brad.
So,
Hey, Tony.
so a couple of things. One, from an access point, when everybody shifted to their homes, not everybody is aware. Probably everybody on this call may know about our low-cost internet programs for families and households that qualify for the free and reduced lunch program. Our members offer an internet essential package down in that area by Comcast for $15 a month. Our friends in the telecom space have similar low-cost access programs for those types of households. So those are underutilized. While we're advertising, many of you may have seen the commercial on Super Bowl. It still takes people letting families know about those programs. So $15 a month for a high-speed broadband connection. And I know our members also have been working with school districts for the families and households that $15 is even too much. I know specifically down in I believe Broward and Miami, they've been working directly with the school district to target individual household to get them those connects. So until the world is wireless, as Tony pointed out, we know that our members are working hard with those wired connection options for those households, and they go a long way, but people need to know about them, and there's help out there for folks.
Brad, it's Marta with Comcast. Sorry to correct you. Internet Essentials is $9.95 a month. It's been the same price for 10 years. And I can tell you, I'm feeling very old today. We're celebrating the 10th anniversary of having launched the service. And after 10 years in the South Florida market, basically, communicating and educating about this product, I can tell you that right behind the access issue is the adoption issue, which is far, far greater, a far more daunting obstacle than access, because we have consistently been, at least in Miami, South Florida, one of the top markets in Comcast for Internet Essentials. But regardless of that, just because you build the field doesn't mean they're going to come. There's still a lot of work to do behind it, especially for the low-income populations.
Yeah, and this is that. Sorry, this is Alex from AT&T. Just kind of piggyback here off of what Marta said and Brad. AT&T also has a similar product called Access at a very similar price point at $10 a month. With the same eligibility. It's all about adoption and folks knowing about it. That's a product that can be taken advantage of. We expanded during the pandemic. Who could be eligible for it? Kids in the Head Start program around the country was also a group of folks that could take advantage of it. And just from the wireless side and 5G, as Tony mentioned, we're working on that as well. It's a critical priority for us within our communities throughout the state to ensure that new state-of-the-art technology, wireless technology, gets deployed. It's a process of working with our local municipalities and local stakeholders to ensure that deployment moves as fast as it can.
Yeah, for the Comcast on the phone, just so you know, we were aware of the program, and we do have it posted on our website for our students.
This is Vic Benanati with AT&T. Over 49 years in the industry, I've seen where the services basically support each other. I don't think any one service is totally standalone with our customers. During hurricanes, the landline works for the older people like me who can't hear. The cell rarely goes down, but in different cities we've experienced cut cables by contractors, and in those cases the wireless come in handy. So I think everything is progressing together. No one service is the ultimate service that takes care of everyone all times.
Hi, it's Stacy again with T-Mobile. I wanted to just make the point too that nobody has made that the network is really built on fiber. All wireless networks are the towers are tied together by fiber, so we absolutely have to have a fiber connection somewhere to get to any kind of speed. That's not to say we can't do pop-up networks in different areas, but to really tie the network together, you have to have a fiber backbone. So we support, the fiber grants. We would also support tax incentives on our network investments. It's something I think we can all get behind as industry, landline and wireless in Florida together. And then I did want to make one correction. Although we're all building 5G networks, our 4G LTE networks are great right now. All of the carriers are able to handle, and the pandemic has proven this, the capacity right now to take on, with 4G LTE. So a lot of the small cell development is to enhance networks in urban areas. And then our network we're building in rural areas is a little bit different architecture with some long haul spectrum to get to some of those areas. But everybody's got to fill in the gaps with fiber, and, they do all work together. So I just wanted to mention those things.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. I've actually learned a lot just from listening to our service providers talk about some of the ways that this works. I am certainly no pro at broadband, and to Isabel's point, I'm fresh and new at this, so I know that I have a lot to learn still. But thank you for that insight. And I do agree that I think there's going to have to be multiple technologies in order to get it out, because I think it's going to be a two-pronged approach. I think it's going to be, well, how do we get it out quickly? It's going to be multiple technologies, but I think it's also going to be that long-term approach is how do we make it sustainable? There was another point that was brought up, and Tony, you brought up a couple things while you were talking that I just started thinking about. Another thing is the accessibility and defining accessibility. And I know some of y'all have heard me say this before, but sometimes accessibility is it accessible? Defining accessibility, is that to make it accessible and I can go get it? Is it I have it, but I need the better access by better internet speeds? Or do I need access? I have both of those, but I need a device. And you mentioned devices, and I think just defining in this conversation and defining accessibility, each region is so different, and even each county is different. Within each county is different. So I think that's really important to identify, but also the adoption part. And I think the adoption part is part two. I think we have to define where we are and the accessibility and how do we get that accessibility. But I hear what the providers are saying with the adoption. You can give it to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always utilized. So, and maybe that's part two of this conversation. So, and I don't know if there's anybody that has any other thoughts or comments on this topic.
I have a question.
I don't think there's a single answer. I think, there's a lot of people who can't afford the access, right? So regardless whether it's fiber, coax, wireless, they just can't afford it. There are people who don't have a device, right? So, and one of the things that we're evangelizing internally here at the college is the fact that if we bridge the digital divide, and let's just say we found enough money through donors, et cetera, to bridge that digital divide, access and device level, right, to thousands of people in Broward County that are underserved or disadvantaged. There's also the component of what do you do with it? So somebody's got to learn how to use the device, right? Teaching them Excel is not going to solve their career problems. So there's a little bit bigger picture here on the back end. So when I talk about digital divide, I'm really talking about digital dexterity for our underserved communities to really take advantage of the technologies, but how to use those technologies, right? I'm sure that not everybody knows how to surf the internet, believe it or not. I think it's, maybe at our ages, we've kind of adopted to it, but I mean, the younger, not everybody can do that. And then there was a fellow that mentioned that, the older generation, my dad was afraid of computers. So, it's twofold, but I'm very focused on the student. I'm sorry.
Tony, this is Marta with Comcast. You are absolutely right. And to be a little more descriptive, the Internet Essentials program is sort of a three-legged stool. Number one, we provide the access for $9.95 a month. Number two, the students have the ability to purchase, if they choose to, a computer for $150. And number three, we have invested billions of dollars over the years providing free digital literacy classes through schools, through community organizations, nonprofits, any partner who is willing to provide the free service. So you absolutely nailed it. It is a very complex problem and multi-layered. And those are what we have found to be the three key elements in creating or developing, nurturing a digitally literate group.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is such a fascinating conversation. So, to the experts in the audience, would you say South Florida is pretty literate digitally? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the best you can be in terms of, I guess, accessibility and adoption, and 1 is low. When you think of South Florida, where do we fall on that range? I mean, I'm not aware of how widespread a problem this is in South Florida. I know that there's pockets where one can expect, like 33311 and Fort Lauderdale that Tony was talking about. But how widespread of a problem is this? And where do we rank on a scale of 1 to 10? Or maybe if you have a better way of posing the question, I'm just trying to get a sense of how big a problem this is in South Florida.
Isabel, from our perspective, it's very difficult to measure what you just requested, right? So how do you measure that? Well, some of the demographics that we look at is unemployment rates. And
Right.
there's 11 zip codes in Broward County that have extremely high unemployment rates compared to the rest of Broward County and compared to the state of Florida.
Okay.
So I think, and by the way, we have a whole organization called Broward Up, Unlimited Potential.
I'm well familiar with it. I know what President Hale's doing, and Isabel. Yes, no, I've been in the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. I'm a member of the board. So I'm very aware of the excellent work that is being done by the partnership in Broward Up.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of my folks are on the call. He's actually the lead technologist for Broward Up, and
good.
I'm an advisor to that committee. But that's how we measure it. We're focused on those, actually 6 zip codes now. 11 was a little bit more than we could bite off in one chunk, but we're focused very much on six zip codes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tony. You've been great. Anybody else? Illuminate me so I can be helpful.
So I want to flip to the next question because I think it's pertinent to our conversation here. And that next question is, what is the greatest challenge or barrier concerning broadband internet faced by your community or region? And I think we've touched on this a little bit, but maybe there's just a few more comments that people might have regarding it. Because I know cost is always a factor and understandable. And I think you touched on that with unemployment rates. Any other thoughts on that and why? Nothing? All right. Well, Sean, have we touched on everything here?
I think so. I think we captured some of that in our two previous conversations. So that's probably why folks are quiet on this one, because we hashed that one out already.
Okay, well then let's go to the last question. See, this was so easy and painless, right? The very last question is, do you want to opt into future communication from the Office of Broadband, which is always a resounding yes, I am sure, because we have fascinating stuff that's going to be coming out pretty soon. But truly, I mean, we want to hear from you. And if there's something that we haven't covered today, or you feel is a really important topic that we need to discuss, let me know. Let's hear from you and how you feel about that accessibility definition for the state and for your region, and specifically for your industry. Is there any other comments or questions for us today that we could touch on while we have all of our service providers here and representatives?
I don't know if this is applicable, but I'll just make a general comment, because I think it was you, Katie, who said you learned an awful lot about broadband today from the providers. I don't know if this organization could also be a vehicle to get that word out, because it's probably one of the best kept secrets around, right? That you can get very inexpensive access to internet. $10 a month seems very reasonable, but I know there's some people would find that challenging. But that is actually, I pay a lot more than that for my Comcast connection. So I don't know if this can be a platform to help spread that word out from the different carriers, Mobile, AT&T, and Comcast.
I do have a running list of these programs that I will gladly share with the RPC, and then they can share it with all of our participants today.
And this is Jack Burge again from CenturyLink Lumen. I'm sure everyone's aware, but under the federal stimulus bill for low income, there's going to be a program that contributes up to $50 a month for broadband connections. U.S. or the FCC is actually meeting on Friday, hopefully to finalize the rules, and that program hopefully will be available starting in March. So I just wanted to call that out.
Thank you. That is excellent. It's an excellent reminder. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think with that, I could close and just say, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone, and actually to let you know, don't be surprised when you hear from us again. As you may know, the South Florida Regional Planning Council is an economic development district designated by the US EDA, and our area is Monroe, Miami-Dade, Broward, and we're getting ready to undertake the development of the comprehensive economic development strategy for South Florida, which is South Florida's plan, not the council's plan. So we rely on all of you, our experts, to help us, learn more about this issue and position it in the said strategy so that we can assess additional resources to address the challenges. So again, if you hear from Mark, don't be surprised, because he's leading up our said charge With that, I'd like to also just thank my staff, Aral Dagoli, Arlene Davis Walcott, Mark Cassidy, and also Brittany from the Emerald Coast RPC for their assistance in putting this together. I think they've done a great job. And again, I'd like to thank Katie and Sean for all your help and for reaching out so that we could put together this conversation for our region. It's a very important one to have. So we look forward to keeping in touch with everyone. I'm so happy to see so many friends on the chat that I know, and I look forward to catching up again soon. Please don't hesitate to call if there's anything we can do to be assistance to you at the council.
Thank you, Isabel. And we want to definitely thank the Regional Councils Association, the Planning Councils, Florida Association of Counties, Small Counties Coalition, Florida Internet and Television, all of our service providers who continuously show up for these calls and listen in detail. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for our industry leaders for participating today. It is really good to see you and hear from you. And thank you, everyone. Please keep in touch. My information is on the screen here, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.